Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related to timestamp this. It's just gone 2 p.m. on Friday, March the 14th, and as usual, I'll be answering questions in order of submission. I'm going to do that up until 3 p.m. UK time today. Team news seems very light on the ground in terms of anything major today, so nothing particularly to announce for everybody. Although Thomas Tuchel made a very interesting announcement this morning. Probably less said about that the better. Let's get into the questions. Darren's up first. Says, hi James, best differential captain this week, considering most probably going Haaland or Wood. Does Justin Kluivert fall into the category there of differential captain? I guess if you had the information on Marmoush or Foden if they were starting. Morgan Gibbs-White is on a good little run for Nottingham Forest. Bruno, I guess. Probably people are buying Bruno Fernandes either short term or obviously free hitters are going to stick him in. I guess Bruno falls into that category. Semenyo, Raul Jimenez. It's a number there, isn't there? But I wouldn't deviate from the two you said, or Kluivert would be the third under consideration for me. I don't mind free hitters going Bruno. I suppose Bruno is probably the answer to your question. FPL Uproar says, hello James. I am planning on going Hall to Milenkovic. Should I play Greaves or get him out for a hit? We'll bench Mateta, Isak and Salah. Playing a 5-4-1 formation. Cheers and all the best to you, mate. You got a player there who's highly likely to play, mate. So on the basis of taking a hit for someone else, you've got to get the clean sheet or attack in return to up that. And that's on the basis that Greaves blanks. So no, not really worth it. If you're saying, yeah, do you know what? I want to take a hit because I want to get this player and this player is going to be better for me for the next 2-3 game weeks, then sure, fine. But I suspect the question is laced just for this week. I wouldn't bother. FPL Don says, hi James, currently playing 4-4-1. You get some great formations in blanks, don't you? With Chris Wood up front. Have one free transfer. Would you sell Trent for Kirkes or Gakpo for a forward and who? Don't know when I'm wildcarding yet. Arguably both, Don. Judging by Arne Slot's comments on Trent, he said, we think he'll be back before the end of the season, but still needs to be assessed. Would suggest he would be extremely doubtful for the Merseyside derby in game week 30 as it would stand. I suspect he might miss a bit of time. I'd bin it personally. And I don't think with the amount of other good forwards there are, I don't think there's a huge case to keep Gakpo unless you plan to specifically buy, say, Isak or Mateta in game week 30. So, to be honest, our answer on that is I've been both, mate. Darren says, yeah, probably bored of answering this, so apologies, but free hit question. Would you rather attack the double in 33 or would you rather cover the teams that blank in 34? What is usually your preference? The one that's going to get me the biggest gain versus my current team, mate. So, I think this changes year on year. I think I said this a lot during sort of the January-February period that I thought people might have a negative bias to using a free hit and a blank because of what happened in blank game with 29 last year was obviously completely terrible, but we did only have 8 teams play. And I don't think we should use that as a subconsciousness for what will happen next. Ultimately, it comes down to which one can you make the greater gain on your team. So if I'm landing game week 33 and I've got 2 free doublers, I want to attack that, right? If I'm set well for 34, vice versa, I'm in a good position for 33, but I'm sort of 5-6 players for now or game week 34 using it in a blank. You're right, I'm bored of it because I think it's specific to teams, isn't it? I spoke yesterday about giving an example where if those wanted to bring bench boosts forward to game week 32, there is a strong possibility, and again, it's dependent on the cup results, that it might look absolutely fine for game week 34 and therefore free hit 33 will be the right play under that circumstance. But it totally depends on what you've got, right? Stuart Day says, hi James, any thoughts on Manetzi from Wolves as a budget enabler as part of a switch from Palmer and Cunha out for Haaland or other mids in similar price bracket? Thanks, man. I see that Vitor Pereira's past Manetzi fit to be involved. I would presume he would start. Obviously came off at halftime against Everton last week having scored. I don't think that's a thrilling prospect. If it's something that covers you and is going to play this week, then great, but it's not a player that I'd want to be putting in every week. In terms of enabling midfielders to go and get, I mean, options are thin on the ground, isn't it? I think Wanyeri will probably play for Arsenal on Sunday, but that's kind of living dangerously, particularly with Arteta's comments that kind of even got the inkling that Saka could even be involved this Sunday. I don't think he will be, but Arteta pretty much said it's now up to them when they put him in, basically. So I don't think we should rule that out as a prospect. Otherwise, it's a bit shy, and it's looking for something for the sake of something else. The Correa Everton, maybe. If it's just needed for this week, maybe have a slight preference for that, bearing in mind that they're at home. But it's a great fixture for Wolves. I don't mind it. If he's going in as 8th attacker and you only intend to start him this week, I don't mind it. The truth is that there aren't great options at those low prices. If you can get up to Elanga or Hudson-Odoi, then obviously that's preferable. Prashan Hajani says, hi James, please help. Which would be the better move? I'm in a competitive mini league and have weekly bets with my mates. Is it better to do a -8 for Ndiaye, Palmer and Trent to Haaland, Elanga and Nico Williams? Well, you're gaining 2 players and I presume you're changing your captaincy, so I don't have too many reasons on that basis to tell you not to do it, mate. JP says, is Trent and Cole Palmer out for Vardy and Bruno worth it if for a -4? And Palmer looks devoid of goals, in my opinion. So, each transfer is fine. I said on our Patreon podcast this morning that I suspected those who buy Bruno Fernandes, which is fine, may very well land in game week 30 and go, I want to reverse that. That's a possibility. And I think even, especially more so if Man City were to beat Bournemouth in the Cup and it didn't look like Bruno was going to double in 33, I could say, okay, I'm going to move that back on. So is it worthwhile for the 1 week? Not sure, mate. I'd rather have, if you're saying to me now, would you rather have Cole Palmer or Bruno Fernandes for the next 4 weeks? It would be Cole Palmer by a distance for me. Don't care that he's had blanks and he might be a bit out of form. I see Tottenham in game week 30 and the doctor will see you now, right? So I'd prefer to have Palmer over the next few weeks rather than Fernandes. This week particularly, Fernandes, of course. Vardy or whether Trent is a move I'm likely to be making. Can't give you a reason not to do it. But for Bruno for the -4, not sure. And if you're wildcarding 30 and you know you're going to do that, then I don't mind. There's a bit of upside chasing there. If you're running through, less keen. Gazman says, hi James, on a wildcard this week, would you sell Palmer to be able to hold Isak and get Salah back in one move next week? Thanks and good luck. Well, I'm going to guess, Gazman, you don't have huge value in Mo. Otherwise, I'd probably just hold on to it and leave it on the bench ready to go and attack something else with a transfer. Go and attack a Crystal Palace player next week, for example. Again, it depends on your strategy. It's important here. I showed strategies yesterday aiming to bench boost in 30, 32, 33. One of those drafts had Haaland in. The other 2 didn't. So I think strategy is quite important here. I think the Haaland was in the 32 bench boost draft that I'd looked at. That's quite important. Again, selling Cole Palmer's not really been a thought process for me. Now, that's possible bias in the sense that I'm currently sitting there with 8 players this week, so he's useful for me, right? But I do look at the fixtures Chelsea have got with the likes of Tottenham at home 30, Ipswich at home 32, Brentford in between's fine. Good cover for 34 for Everton if you're short on chips and running through. I'm happy to hold on to Palmer personally. But your priority here is ultimately what you're doing with Mo, right? I'm not going to decide for people to say, take Mo out, or the sensible advice from me is to say, yeah, make sure you have him. Darren says, apart from Palace and Newcastle, best 3 teams to be looking at attacking from game week 30, thanks. What's the measure on that? Game week 30 to the end? Game week 32. Wolves, potentially, likes of 8 Norrie, but you probably want to do that now. City, more information. Bournemouth still, game week 30. Nottingham Forest, but a lot of these teams, those 4 teams you'll want to go and attack now, presumably. Where does it swing back for a few others? Maybe West Ham with Wolves away in game week 30, but factoring going to Liverpool in game week 32. The obvious ones you've mentioned about Newcastle Palace. Liverpool obviously come back into consideration. And actually it comes back around for Chelsea in game week 30. Prashan Hajani says, or a -4 for Trent and Ndiaye to Nico Williams and Wood, or simply just go and die to Evan Nilsson and captain Justin. Thank you for the impact smash and like the subs. As in, As in James Justin, the Ipswich defender. I probably wouldn't be captaining him this week, mate. I really don't think that's who you meant. I'm going to assume you mean Justin Kluivert. You can see the mistake that I would have made there. I have no problem with Captain Kluivert. It's probably top 3 this week for me. Moving out Trent and Dyer feels like absolutely the right thing to do. I'm not going to tell you not to do that, mate. But I can't remember the first question you asked. Luke Boy 123 says, "Hi James, would you rather do Trent, Palmer, and Pedro out to Milenkovic, Semenyo, and Haaland, or Trent, Isak, and Pickford to Agbadu, Haaland, and Areola? Bought Isak at 8.5 and will field 11 in both cases." I wouldn't want to be pissing about with Isak in most circumstances. Apologies if you might have lost connection from me briefly there. Yeah, what I was saying is if you want to attack Haaland and Isak is your only route to do it, then fine. But generally speaking, you give me 2 options there, and one is keeping Isak, and I'd prefer that option. CMP says, "Hey James, on assistant manager 30 to 32 and don't want to use any transfers on the chip so I can better navigate the doubles. Who would you suggest under this strategy? Currently thinking how makes the most sense." Probably the safest one in terms of there'll be 4 fixtures there that they're favourites to win. I suspect Newcastle won't win all of them. That's probably just the way it'll work, but you'd be disappointed if you got less than 30, I think. That's fair to say. I think it depends how it lands, right? So I think you could make a strong case for Unai Emery, but it depends on how the table sits in 30. So if you're going into game week 30 and Villa away to Brighton is going to get the bonus for Emery at Brighton, and then you're looking at Forest at home afterwards also maybe being a bonus, and then the final game being Southampton, arguably it's that. Even though it's a game less, because you're chasing a bonus on 2 football matches that Villa would be very capable of winning. Oliver Glasner will also come under consideration. Again, if the Brighton 31 fixture looks like it will be a bonus, Southampton then Brighton, then obviously the double, although the power Glasner bonus games look like diminishing week on week where there's less prospects of them. But ultimately, what you're best off doing, because you're considering Eddie Howe, right? Budget for the 1.5. You don't have to make the decision now. Don't cut yourself off where you're going to have 3 Newcastle, Palace or Villa at this stage, which, considering all blanking this week, I can't believe that's going to be the case. So you're leaving your options open. You don't have to make that decision now, mate. JP says, "How isn't Spence in the England squad? Also, Burn over Branthwaite is crazy. Hendo over Gibbs White is disgusting." I don't have a problem with Jed Spence not being in the England squad. He was one I put in the draft that I did on the Clayton and James show on Wednesday, just because I thought England were very, very short in the fullback areas. I'll be honest, I didn't think that Tuchel would call up Reece James. He has, fair enough, don't have a problem with that. Rico Lewis also not being called up though. But I don't have a problem with Jed Spence not being called up, none whatsoever. Dan Burn over Branthwaite is interesting. I think that's the kindest thing I could say. Not nothing against Dan Burn, but it's interesting. I think most Newcastle fans would probably disagree with that call, but anyway. Jordan Henderson. Obviously, Tuchel has said this morning that it's a lot to do with leadership. I don't think that squad lacks for leadership now. I think it's got good experience. But we don't know the importance of how we may be in and around the squad. Just remove the football for the moment. Gareth Southgate used to speak about this a lot. And maybe that Tuchel will sort out the opinions of other, experienced players like Harry Kane, and the advice has been call him up. I don't know. Again, I don't have a specific problem with the Jordan Henderson being called up. I can't pretend that I've watched him play for Ajax this year, so I wouldn't know if he's in good form or bad form. It's a strange one, though. Morgan Gibbs-White, I am astounded that he's not in the England squad. That's the biggest one for me. It's not other people in for out, and Gibbs-White shouldn't be compared with Henderson, for example, really. But I am gobsmacked. That was the first thing I said. I was talking to Nico when the squad dropped this morning, and that was the first thing I said. I could not believe that Morgan Gibbs-White wasn't in the squad. Amazed by that. I think he's been in incredible form. I think he can play multiple positions. I think he's absolutely ideal. I'm very surprised he's not in the squad. I'll tell you what, I'll have a bet with you. You'll be in the next one. Perlo's Pen says, "Hi James, can you talk through the major risks with Wildcard 30 and the best chip strategy if you do go this way, considering bench boost and free hit? Thanks, mate." Okay. So we covered this a number of times, but we'll do my best, mate. So My massive concern with Wildcard 30 isn't specifically the wildcard in game week 30. It is the setting up to bench boost in game week 33. That is what scares me. Why does it scare me? Because you may not have the information. But James will know who's won in the FA Cup quarterfinals. You will know which teams won't play on the weekend in game week 34, but you do not factually know necessarily that their fixtures will get brought forward to the 33 midweek. The last FA Cup quarterfinal was on the Sunday afternoon. The draw will be on the Sunday night. Here's what we can work out. Little bits, like I've said. Whoever Aston Villa draw, Aston Villa will probably play on the Saturday in the FA Cup semi-final. If Villa play Fulham, for example, it will decrease the possibility of Fulham having their double game week in 33 because they'd have to play Sunday Chelsea, Wednesday Southampton, Saturday against Villa in the semi-final. It doesn't feel ideal. Why force the game in there when you don't have to? Now, we can understand little nuances like this and predict and warn before the deadline. But we cannot promise you that you will get the fixtures for game week 33 before the game week 30 deadline. It scares the living bejesus out of me that people will plan to say bench boost in 30, stock up on the likes of, wildcard in 30 to bench boost 33, stock up on the likes of Brighton and West Ham assets because I've got it projected to go there, and then it doesn't. That scares me for other people, and I can't warn it enough. That at game week 30, if you are setting to bench boost in game week 33, you better keep your fingers crossed and pray, because there is no guarantee you're going to get the understanding. Now, I know why people want to do it, because they want to use other chips, but what I don't understand is a lot of it is, but people want to use Arseman. But hang on, if people want to go wildcard 30 and Arseman 31 to 33, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. It's the wildcard 30 to bench boost 33. Now, if you're wildcarding 30 and you're bench boosting 33, you can't play Arseman in the middle. Okay? So I would much prefer, truthfully, for those who are wildcarding in game week 30, I much prefer the deviation, as highlighted yesterday, to bench boost in game week 32. You would at least see what's in front of you. Use the free hit for 33. You will probably land quite nice for 34. Again, at that point, we can at least be clear on what the worst case scenario for 34 is. Remember, a fixture postponed from the weekend of 34 could easily stay in that midweek. So if Brighton and West Ham, as an example, was postponed, there is nothing to say that it would be brought forward to the midweek of 33. It may be played in the midweek of 34 and just be part of the normal game week. But we can at least ascertain what the worst case scenario will be for game week 34. And we can also ascertain what the worst case scenario will be for game week 33. But for game week 33 bench boosters, you're not interested in the worst case scenario. You're interested in the best case. And I won't be able to promise it for you, I don't think. Or if it does come through, you're likely to find out with an hour or two to spare before the deadline comes around. That's my fear. I do not have a problem with people wildcarding 30, particularly those who want an assistant manager 31 to 33. I've got no problem with it whatsoever. However, as said, I think most people, I've seen some examples, most people land quite nicely in 30. Is the specific fear of people wildcarding 30 to set up bench boost 33 scares me. Really does. And I think it may happen and people do that and then people go, oh shit, that's not the way I thought it would land. I'm going to have to bench boost in 32 anyway. So that's my advice, I think. For those in 30, unless we've got real clear clarity on what we think will happen in 33, bench boost in 32. Free hit 33. Ash Buckley says, hi James, who's the best Trent replacement for the rest of the season? Thanks. Connor Bradley, if he's fit. No, he's not. It's Vardio, isn't it? I think. Look, City, despite I've kind of raised concerns about them all season long, and I haven't owned a City player all season long. I think if you look at City's fixtures from now to the end of the season, understand that they're out the Champions League. There isn't huge reason to think that Vardio would be rotated much. Ironically, it could be a second fixture in game week 33. But I think he plays nearly all the games now at left back. Does he look like the best version of Josko Vardio, the best fantasy asset at the moment? No, but that might switch around. I think City's fixtures till the end of the season are great. Pretty much got them, I think, probably second on my ticker for all the fixtures left behind Wolves. And I think I've got Nottingham Forest third, actually. So, Vardio, mate. Next up is CMP says, commenting again just to say thanks so much for all the content. Big fan of the podcast. You're very welcome, mate. I'm sure you smashed the like and hit the sub button. For those of you who have done neither, please do so. Zubi says, which combination do you prefer? Beto and Milenkovic or Raul Jimenez and Nico Williams? You're asking a Tottenham fan, mate. You already know what the answer to that is, don't you? Jimenez and Williams, mate. Andrew Parker says, hi James, good result last night. We'll take it. On wildcard 29 and looking at bench boost 30. So who do you think scores more points across the next two? Gabriel Kirkes Minter or Vardiel 8 Nori Semenyo? I'm drawn to think not the Minter option. I don't mind Minter as a pick because you're probably thinking later on about 32, 33, which is fine, Andrew. But I'm drawn on that alone to think of the alternative, I think. Yeah. And I'm going to say that. I'm going to say the Vardiel route. Frederick Hertz says, sounds crazy, but Trent as punt on wildcard. Punt because I prefer others, but he could be handy on bench boost. And then drop down to burn 32. Funds go to upgrade Fernandes to Saka if he's back and fire him. Look, we haven't got the information, but if I was on wildcard right now, I wouldn't have Trent in it. Absolutely no chance. No reason to, I don't think. He's a punt. It's also likely to be punted out your team because you need to make a transfer just as much. Particularly, Frederick, if you're planning for the bench boost. It feels much better. If you want to do that, leave money in the bank, mate. And if I'm going to bench boost in 30, Trent's definitely available and you want to bring him back in, bring him back in. By all means, if you've got the information. Feels a much better idea to do it that way, I think, mate. Rudy says, was going to take -4 and play with 10. But with the Trent news, is it worth transferring him out to get Kirkes and Bruno? Would otherwise just be Rodgers, Semenyo, or someone similar. Again, the caveat of what I said, that I think there's a fair chance that you may want to move Bruno on in 30, where, quite frankly, although yes, he looks better on paper than Semenyo, I see Semenyo has Ipswich in 30, and that might be just as useful for you. So I think I would proceed as you were, Rudy, but I would move Trent out, but I probably wouldn't go the Bruno route. Would I buy Semenyo at this point? No, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. Again, little dependent on your strategy, maybe. If they were double, they're both doubles, so it impacts both players. I just think Bruno Fernandes, I think it looks great now. Hat-trick last night. Talisman. You know what he's capable of. Brilliant fixture this week. I do think there's every chance he'll land at 30 and want to move that on. That's kind of the big point for me. Headley M says, hi James, quick question. Do you think it's worth taking a -4 to replace a non-playing game week 29 goalkeeper? So I think we had this very discussion actually with a few patrons on a call yesterday. And we was basically saying like quite a lot of the influence on this is who's your other goalkeeper. So I'll give you an example. The person who's asking the question didn't have a goalkeeper this week, but their other goalkeeper was Jordan Henderson. Not Jordan Henderson, sorry, look at me. Thomas Tuchel influence. Dean Henderson, sorry. So Dean Henderson, Southampton away, decent fixture 31, double 32, that's fine, right? So by effect, the goalkeeper you buy is literally just for this week. And the answer to that, therefore, I think would be no. Now, maybe if it was a different one that you didn't have, maybe you're sitting there with Fabianski as your other keeper, and you've got maybe Martinez, and I'm not sure I wanted that, then yeah, I probably would take the -4 to move Martinez out to something like Kepa, for example. So I think your other keeper is quite important in that debate. And also, what about the one you're selling? If the one you're selling is better than the one you're buying in forthcoming weeks, then wouldn't bother, frankly. Next up is Getty says Gakpo, Palmer and Trent to Haaland, captain Bruno and Vardiel for a -8, or keep Trent and just do a -4. Yeah, I'd move it on. I think I've not a doctor, I've not got any ITK on Trent or anything, but I know there was some speculation, and we saw the incident. Many of us saw the incident the other night. Went, could be a bad one. And I do read into Arne Slot's comments this morning, although he said yes, he's still being assessed. We're confident we'll have him back before the end of the season. It doesn't inspire much confidence that for game week 30, does it? I'd be moving it on. CD says, hi James, is Haaland essential? No such thing, mate. You got the wrong stream. Should I take a -4 to get him and keep Salah and Isak with a 3.8 and 3.9 dead weight defenders? Now, your dead weight defenders is important in your strategy, right? So if you're playing the bench boost sometime soon, I suggest you don't do that, mate. Wouldn't do it. So if you got the bench boost, yes or no? Is he essential? I already answered that. The wrong stream, mate. He hasn't been essential at any point this season. I proved that to you at the start of the season. FPL Developer says, hi, James. Haaland captain and Agbadu, or Bruno captain and Vardy. Which combination is better for the next 2 game weeks? Second option means keeping Isak and saving 0.4 on team value, but not sure I like Bruno for game week 30. So, does it have to be Bruno that you go for? I get the appeal. You're not going to tell me that, sell me different. I don't think he's a great asset for this week. But does it have to be Bruno? You're already saying, you preempted kind of what I said. I don't like him next week, right? He goes to Forest, then City, then he goes to Newcastle. Like, then it might be a single in a powerful double game week. Okay, then he might play in 34, Bournemouth away. You wouldn't go Bruno on a free hit in 34. So, yeah, I wouldn't be buying Bruno, personally. I prefer the route because that route keeps you Isak, which is what I'd said to someone else who asked earlier. But I'd arguably not go Bruno that route. But I also get it in your case, you want to captain, right? But who you captain is, there's nothing wrong with captain Chris Wood this week. Don't fear it. Chris Wood, Cliver, have you got another decent option? If you do, then I wouldn't go Bruno. If genuinely it's a case of captaincy like defines this, then yeah, sure, go Bruno. FBL Marshall, I can see the rest of your comments. I'm going to come back onto yours. Half of Pratim Das says, hey James, should I bring in Haaland this week or wait to decide on Mateta or Haaland for game week 30? My 3 forwards are Isak, Wood and Wissa. If I was going Haaland, I'd get it done. But again, does that mean he's going in for Isak now? If so, then what? Wissa back to Isak in 30? Not convinced. I'm going one up front this week, and I don't think I'm bringing him in. But if you're going there, I'd get it done, personally, because I think he's the best captaincy this week. FPL Cherry says, hi James, do you prefer Bowen or Savinho to buy now for the next 5 weeks? Would your answer change if you were chasing ranked mini league? No, it wouldn't change. It would be Jared Bowen. You know exactly what you get. How many does Savinho start the next 5 for City? It's like, how long's a piece of string, isn't it? God knows. Does he even start tomorrow? Probably. But to pick a player like that and know he'll still be in the City team in 5 weeks, kind of unquestionable for me that I'd be going Jared Bowen. Also says, would you rather carry a Newcastle attacker or a Palace attacker through blank game week 29? Need to sell one. Ultimately, this comes down to value. So, an example would be I'm up 0.9 on Isak. I'm up like 0.1 on Mateta. If I'm going to sell one, it's Mateta, isn't it? Okay. You might not have that circumstance. In which case, I probably wouldn't sell the Palace player, because you would definitively want that the most, I think, next week, unless you intended to captain Isak against Brentford, but I doubt it. So it would probably be hold the Palace player. But ultimately, value is probably the bigger decider here. Nemanja Kovac says, if chasing rank, is bringing Wood now a good decision? I could go Wood and Milenkovic or Evanilson and Vardy. Ooh, I'd be very tempted to go with the latter there. Go Evanilson and Vardy at this stage, actually. Yeah, I was surprised by how good Evanilson looked last week. I was obviously at the stadium. And I was impressed. He didn't look like a player that was short of fitness. You know, players seem like they need time. Fair play to Suj, who went and bought him last week, because he was not on radar for me at all. And it was out all coming back from injury. But he looked like he was on it, right? So I'd probably take the Evanilson Vardy route there, I think. Tom Love says, hi James, thanks for the great content. How likely is it the 34 fixtures for Bournemouth and Palace don't move to 33? If they go through in the FA Cup after Arsenal and Man United are through in Europe. So, to go back to the point earlier in terms of nuances. So, we will know now that in the case of Arsenal versus Crystal Palace and Bournemouth versus Manchester United, those fixtures are not going to stay in 34. However, as per the Chips and the Arseman Volume 3 podcast last Tuesday, I did state that under that circumstance, I thought there would be a possibility that one of the Arsenal Palace or Bournemouth Manchester United games did not come forward to 33 and was instead held for 36. I did think that would be a possibility. Under that circumstance, I think it's possibly slightly more likely that Arsenal v Palace would be held back. But truthfully, that's kind of like a 51-49. And the chances are that they both get played in game week 33. But they won't stay in game week 34 because obviously you'd have to schedule it and assume that Arsenal and Manchester United need that midweek for the European games, right? You won't know till the midweek of 32 if that midweek is needed or not, right? By this point, you've got to arrange the fixture. So those two games, if postponed, obviously will not stay in game week 34. FPL Marshall says, hey James, would you take a -4 for any... Same applies to City Villa, by the way. FPL Marshall says, hey James, would you take a -4 for any defender for 29 and 30 before wildcard 31, or just play Colwell 29 then Dean away at Brighton? Okay, this is a good question. I like this. Because ultimately you can buy something that will be better in both weeks. So I think, for example, if you buy Kirkes, is that better than Colwell this week? Yes. Is that better than Dean in 30? Yes. But is it enough to justify a hit? Probably not. Probably not. The only awkwardness in this as well is, does Dean start at Brighton in game week 30? Considering obviously Villa have the FA Cup quarter final the weekend before. Now, to know that now, we know Dean is first choice, but they've obviously got a European tie the following week. Does Maatsen play against Forest? I think we could overthink this, couldn't we? Villa's ties have been scheduled, by the way, the Wednesday and the Tuesday. Either side are playing Southampton in the middle. Exactly what Liverpool had. I'm going to say no. For a free, like, yeah, all day long. For a hit, I'm probably going to say no, mate. Good question, that. FPL Cherry says, love the concept, mate. Hope you enjoyed the game with Thursday and your jammy comeback last weekend. Jammy comeback last weekend, yes. Did I enjoy the game last night? There were aspects that I liked. There were aspects that I didn't like. We did enough to turn the tie around last night. Vintage it wasn't. Opening 15 minutes of the second half's the best I've seen for quite a while, but it was kind of sporadic. Henriette says, happy Friday, James. Would you play Haaland in a 5-3-2 formation or use one free transfer to sell Rodgers for one of Mensah, Elanga, Hudson, Odoi? Also bringing in Gibbs White for Palmer, Watkins. Sorry, also bringing in Gibbs White for Palmer, Watkins going to Haaland. Those midfielders, would I bother? One free transfer. No, I think you get more use of that transfer another time, Henriette, just, you know, in terms of even knowing, okay, looks like they're going to double 33 or something like that, or even attack a double itself in 33. I think you get a bit more probably usage out of that further down the line, I would think. Of the players under consideration, it would probably be Elanga for me, but I would leave it be. Alex MJ87 says, thanks for the wildcard stream, James. I'm currently considering it and struggling with the goalkeeper. Still got bench boost and free hit. Bench boost 32. Any suggestions? Don't want Henderson as want free Palace outfield. That would be the number one pick. So you're taking that away from me. By default, I think you are tempted to look at Nick Pope. That comes with a little bit of a warning. As you are looking to bench boost in a week where it's a double game week, I think you should have a double keeper. Truthfully, my honest advice would be, please put Dean Henderson in. Because would I want like Eze or something? Yeah, but there's other midfielders you can have. You know, that might allow you Minter against Leicester instead, who then might double afterwards, right? Something like that. Mitoma, an alternative. Truthfully, number one would be Dean Henderson. If you're that insistent on not having him, I would take a chance on Nick Pope. Now, the problem with that is you're now then looking for a cheaper goalkeeper to go with it. And you also want a goalkeeper that's fairly decent for this week. Obvious solution here would be Matt Sells, but then that is too much money to be spending on goalkeepers. Sells and Henderson, okay. Pope and Sells, too much. So it brings Kepa, I think, into the equation. Fulham at home doesn't scream great. Verbruggen screams good for 32 at home to Leicester, but then that's your starting goalkeeper this week. That feels a bit shit. Similar answer with Robert Sanchez, who dangerous, but Enzo Maresca didn't imply today that we certainly said Sanchez will start on Sunday and implied that he's the number one goalkeeper again now and we don't want to change it again. But they might. All in, the number one thing for me there, Alex, would be to put Henderson in. If not, I think you're spending too much on your goalkeepers. So if it's me, truthfully, I'm putting Henderson in and I'm pairing that with something like Kepa, I think. Home to Fulham don't feel great 32, but it's a home fixture, it's okay. I'm probably doing something like that, I think. That'll make you look at bench boost 30 as well. But as you're excuse me. And you haven't said which week you're wildcarding. Honestly, Alex, the priority there for me would be go Henderson. If I was on wildcard this week, irrespective, not almost any strategy I was doing, Dean Henderson would come with me. Jacob NH says, hi James, for the next 2 weeks, would you rather go Wood and Bruno or Haaland and one of Semenyo, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi? For the next 2 weeks specifically, I would rather go Haaland and Semenyo based on the fixtures, mate. Chris Hermitage says, hi James, if you look at the England squad for Euros, has any member played better this season than last? I said this to my mates. We said maybe Pickford, but that's about it. Cheers. Question. Struggling. Struggling, Chris. Yeah, that's a great comment. Not that thought of. But I'd certainly, I don't think there's anything I can think of off the top of my head, certainly that played regularly for England last summer. You could say, yeah, definitively I've had a better season this season than last season. No, I don't think there is. That's interesting. Sujizin says, is Haaland essential this game week? Haaland's saying that. Suji's saying that because he intends to free hit without the big bastard. So, good luck. Almost Seko says, bench boost 32, free hit 33, no assistant manager. Can get to bench boost 32 with 6 doubles. I mean, you don't even need to get the 6 doubles yet on a -4. Leading up to wildcard 35 or via 31. The wildcard 31 path means Haaland in 29, Palmer Isak out. Wildcard 35, no Haaland for now. Double Palace in 30. Pros, cons, wildcard 31 v 35. Well, I'm sure there's other dilemmas on top of what you're just saying there, right? So, it's a question I don't like. When should I wildcard? Okay. Tell me what your planned moves are for the next 3-4 weeks after you wildcard. Because there's so many nuances, decisions, 15 decisions, and then off of them 15 decisions, they then branch into like a longer term decision, a medium term decision, shorter term decision. And I think, if you're wildcarding in 31, and you say, right, this guy's staying until the end, that's 8 game weeks. I think in FPL, 8 game weeks is a fairly long time, actually. So to say which one's definitively better, I can only tell you that I came to a conclusion after the chip pod last week where I looked at my path, wildcarding now, taking hits now, and I found that I was landing close enough in game week 34 that I didn't believe there was enough gain for me in wildcarding now and that there might be more later on. Certainly I can manage game week 34 better by not wildcarding now, and it also allows me to possibly attack 33 with a little bit more strength. To answer this based on 1 or 2 players, I don't truthfully know how to go about that, Olmo. What I can say is in terms of you're setting better to bench boost 32, wildcard 31 will help you with that. I'm going to guess the fact that you've nominated wildcard 35 that you've still got a free hit in hand, and you said, yeah, potentially looking at 33. So 32 probably lands you better than 34. If you think you're set okay for 32 and there isn't enough gain in doing it 31, then yeah, I would wait for 35. But I don't think there's, for me to sit and give you a black and white answer, I don't think it works like that, mate. Good luck. B Badger says, hi James, your comment on Haaland early in the week felt like a personal attack, but still tempted to go there for this game week only. I like Evan Nilsson and Solanke, and I've lost your question because it was a personal attack. No, it wasn't a personal attack. Sorry. I did not intend to be personally attacking. I can remember the comment I made about Rasmus Højlund. I said something like, "You're not going to go there, are you?" It's pretty much to the essence of it what I'd said. And I can't find the rest of your question now. Found it. I like Evan Nilsson and Solanke. Thoughts on strikers around that mark? So, no, I would not be going to Højlund because I don't think he's a guaranteed starter. I don't actually have him in my predicted United team this week. And by the way, as it stands, I wouldn't have Dominic Solanke in my predicted Tottenham team for this weekend either. So that makes this a really easy one to answer in terms of Evan Nilsson. I genuinely think you've got to factor in with Dom. He played the whole game Sunday. He played the whole game Thursday. He took the heavy whack last Thursday in his first game back. The game is irrelevant on Sunday. Truthfully, if I'm picking the team on Sunday, Dominic Solanke is a substitute because it's too important to get injured. So, no, I wouldn't be recommending Dominic Solanke on Sunday. Would I be surprised if he plays? No, not at all. And I think most common opinion would be that he starts. But I think there's a strong possibility that Ange might have learned some lessons. I would not be starting Dominic Solanke on Sunday if I was picking the team. Zem says, "Hi James, question, Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi aside, who are the best 5.6 million and below mids for game week 29? I may just play 10 as I'm uninspired by any of the other potential Rodgers replacements. Then don't get any. Don't get for the sake of sake." It's probably a very good logic to work towards here, this in FPL, is don't buy something if you don't like it. Right? It's like buying for the sake. I could say to you, punt Decore this week, or, someone was asking about Manetzi earlier. Nope. If I was in your circumstance, I'd just be keeping Rodgers. Wouldn't bother. Michael Radley says, "Hi mate, planning on Cunha, Mo and Trent out for Haaland, Kluivert and Vardy. -4 to field 11. Was always going to captain the robot in 30 and wildcard 31 anyway. Would you approve?" I don't disapprove, Michael. You've got a plan in place, mate. And I think you're buying arguably the strongest defender, strongest midfielder and strongest forward this week. So if you're going to do it, it's not a bad way to do it. Milan Dog says, "Can bench boost in game week 30 with Pickford away to Liverpool, Castagne at Arsenal." Jesus Christ, mate. Bowen at Wolves, Cole against Tottenham. What do you think? I think you already know my answer. If it meant wildcard to clean up afterwards, or bench boost 32, 33, cheers, all the best. You're very welcome, mate. I would not be bench boosting with players away to Liverpool and away to Arsenal. No chance. Diljeet07 says, "Have free transfers and was thinking to do Cunha, Palmer and Van Heck. To Haaland, Semenyo and a 4.3 million defenders. This is Agbadou, Hill, Matsurawi. Definitely don't go Hill. Zabani will come back into the Bournemouth teams, kind of as covered on COTC, 50-50 wherever he'd last. And Araujo's fit as well, so definitely don't be going for Hill. Matsurawi is okay for this week, but I wouldn't want it in any other week. Agbadou's actually great as a kind of fifth defender pretty much for the rest of the season. So actually that's the one I'd go to, subject to what your strategy plans are. I'm not going to tell you not to buy Haaland. If that's what you want to do, mate. How do you feel about Semenyo beyond 30? Again, what's your strategy plan here? Definitely Agbadou of the defenders you mentioned. Do you really want to bin Palmer? You may have made that decision. That's fine if you have. I will just repeat that. I think he'll do really well game weeks 30 to 32. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope it does shit. Mohit RK Nar says, "Hi James, should I captain Bruno or Haaland?" You should captain the player that you believe gets the most points, mate. I believe that'll be Haaland. Ben Wilgoose says, "Hi James, would you do Isak to Wood from -4 and lose the value, or just play with 10? Other option is Rodgers to Elanga from -4. Prefer the second option. More justification if you intend to captain Chris Wood. If you don't, wouldn't bother. And I would go the other option. Rodgers to Elanga, fine. Diljit says, "Like the stream, guys. Chinese or Indian, and what is your usual order from these?" Well, there's only one of them really that my stomach can take, my friend. So it's a mixed grill from the Indian. Chinese, egg fried rice, chicken chow mein, chicken pork balls, sweet and sour sauce, ribs, duck. It's probably easy to list what I don't get. The problem with Chinese though, and we do find this, He's so salty. Like, I feel like you have a Chinese night, you need 4 cans of Coke with it. Thomas Jones says, I'll come to you in a minute. Sorry, Thomas, I missed one out. Nihar says, hey, James, would you do Isak, Palmer, or maybe, no, maybe I did do that. No, maybe I didn't. Nihal says, hey, James, would you do Isak, Palmer, Trent, Haaland, Bruno, Trent from -8? Buy Trent from -8. No, you've put Trent in the buy and the sell. Okay, right. I can't answer your question. Sorry. Good luck. Thomas Jones said, afternoon, James. Is it worth bringing in a Forest defender for Robinson or Howson with the plan to play the Forest defender this and next week for wildcarding in 31? No, nowhere near enough justification for that. I'd actually, in the free hit draft I did yesterday, I actually got Anthony Robinson starting in it. So, make of that what you will. FPL Yellow Army says, afternoon, James, looking for a striker for 1 week punt for game week 29. As we'll be selling for Haaland in 30. Assuming he doesn't get injured before Leicester, would you therefore punt on Pedro or Jimenez? Straightforward one. Raul Jimenez there, mate, playing against my team. I'd assume Evan Nelson obviously isn't an option for you. And I presume this is also probably budget related. So, yeah, Raul Jimenez would be the straightforward choice there on that. I'd rather punt Larson than Pedro. That's just on the fixture. If it's just for the 1 week, I'd rather do that. But, yeah, Jimenez, you're cool, mate. Philip Sutton says, hi James, thanks for the great content. I know it's the who, not the how many. So who are the top 8 players you would say are needed to go through game week 29 without the free hit? So okay. So I'm not going to have all of these players and I'm not free hitting this week and life will go on and I may get a green arrow. But I would say in terms of covering yourself this week, I don't think Haaland falls into the category because of the value attached, and it might mean losing Salah, right? So I don't want to put him in there. So Chris Wood. Again, Bruno is great for this week. But I think Kluivert more important. Arguably more Bumo, although Bumo's fixtures are pretty shoddy after this week as well. I think you want Arsenal defensive coverage. I think you want Nottingham Forest defensive coverage. Other than that, I wouldn't stress about it too much, mate. Honestly, wouldn't stress about it too much. I think captaincy will have a bearing. But I don't think... I'm going to regret saying this. I don't think it will be a slaughter. What I mean by that is I don't think that the free hit teams will slaughter non-free hitters this week who are without 5 or 6 of these players. I don't think that'll be the case. 200% rank drop for me. James OO says 2 free transfers doing Isak to Haaland and Trent to Nico Williams. Should I take a -4 to remove Dango for Kluivert and I have 11 good starters? Remove the noise. This is the best advice I can give you here. Just remove the noise, remove all the other stuff. Is it worth taking a -4 to bring in Justin Kluivert for Dango Utara? The answer is yes. Yes, it is. I think so. Start 29, great fixture 30, on pens. Yeah. If Dango played for a different team, I don't think you think twice about it. Next up is Dan Nye. Says, hi James, Isak to Haaland and Dyer to Wood, Trent to Vardy and Palmer to Kluivert for a -4. Sure, usual warning about Isak and being concerned about getting rid, but he can't hurt you this week. Also put own Dango question. There's no wrong with holding Utara this way. A little bit like last week. It's just difference, right? Acknowledge the difference between me saying, yes, take a -4 for Kluivert, but don't just bin it out for the sake of it. What I mean by that is, I spoke last week about, and I know it was a 1-pointer, but Utara potentially being a threat as a substitute. The same still applies this week, right? So I wouldn't just bomb him out for, I don't know what I want, or I'll go for one of Forest players. Like, if you're not sure what you want, fine. In the case of the previous person who's asked a question about Utara to Kluivert, for me, that's clear. Do it. If it's not clear, take Utara as 1 point this week. Move on. Absolutely fine. Murphy says, do you prefer Elanga or Hudson-Odoi? I did say earlier a little preference for Elanga, but I'd certainly note that there's, from some of our Nottingham Forest's Patreon community on Slack, there's quite a split opinion on that, and it might be a little bit of preference for Hudson-Odoi at the moment. Personally, me, Elanga. Ethan Jocelyn says, hi James, hope you're good. Thoughts on a new Man United stadium and area development? Okay, I'm just debating whether to cover any of that now or not. We are going to do a podcast on it on Patreon next week on our Money in Football. That's principally what the subject's going to be. So I don't want to give too much away. On the face of it, looks good. Looks good. Like in terms of design, it's unique. You're going to get the kind of the fucking like net intent and circus. I used to joke the circus as well, but it's not meant like with any animosity. You know, people call White Hart Lane a toilet bowl because of the shape of the roof. Okay, it's not a toilet bowl when you're in it. I'll tell you what would have been handy was toilet bowls at AZ Alkmaar last Thursday, but that's a Patreon conversation. Yeah, it looks fine. Area development, Ethan, in all honesty, I've not looked into it enough. But we'll certainly be discussing the financial implications of what might be required for that next week. Mr. FIPA99 says, hi James, still have bench boost and triple captain available. Would you bench boost 30 with Bruno, Sells, Nico Williams and Agbadou? Or in 32 and save the triple captaincy for potential double that might not happen in 36? Worried about the conflict. So I don't know what your potential bench would look like in 32, so I can't really give a good answer for that. In terms of that as a bench boost for game week 30, is pretty conflicting, isn't it? Bruno, Sells, Nico Williams. So if Bruno scores, he wipes out two of the other scores. But if Bruno scores, it's probably enough to get you towards your target. But what happens if it's 1-1 and he don't score? Shit, innit? Trust Wolves for a clean sheet. I've seen better ones. Let me put it that way. In terms of saving the triple captaincy for 36, we spoke about this on Chips and the Arseman 3 last Tuesday, and I identified Haaland for game week 36. And the reason I identified that was your worst case scenario, if there is no doubles, is you just captain Haaland away to Southampton. And that's it. And that's okay. That's okay, right? It's fine. Majid for Nicky says, would you take a hit to field a goalkeeper in 29? I covered that very similar question earlier, Majid, right near the start of the stream if you're joining a bit late, just to pretty much say that your other goalkeeper is quite irrelevant to this. So I'm just going to skip, but thank you for your question. Brian Lee says, hi James, looking for a 2-week striker for making up 11 for 29 and a bench boost of 30, maxed out on Bournemouth, can't afford Haaland. What's your shout? 8 million limit. It's probably got to be Wood then, hasn't it? I think. Is this where I find out Brian? And Brian's behind the keyboard going, did I've already got him? I don't know, right? Evan Nilsson's the one otherwise, isn't it? You could go Strand Larson. It's not the worst. It's Southampton away, West Ham at home. But unlike with Evan Nilsson looking like he really hit the ground running last week, I obviously watched Bulls Saturday night as well, and I felt he was a bit off it personally. So I wouldn't be hugely keen on that. But you know, forward against teams that are 20th away and then 16th at home respectively is not terrible. If it has to be for the 2 weeks and you've already got Wood, then it, based on your value and what's available, it's probably that Larson. Sean says, hi James, would you go Aina or Kirkes for the next 2 with a game with 31 wildcard in mind? Kirkes. Football chat box says, hello James, hope you're well. I'm wondering if it's worth removing someone like a Bowen from -4 to bring in Bruno so I can captain him. Or would putting the armband on Wood Clivert be better? Yeah, I would not be moving Jared Bowen. I think as well that, again, it's dependent on your strategy. You might be wildcarding in 31, so you know, it might not matter, for example. But I do think there is a scenario here where Jared Bowen could be more than just template in game week 33. There is a unique circumstance where I think he could even be the most captain player that game week. So I'd be aware of that. That's an unlikely scenario because that probably needs Haaland not to double in that week. And that requires City and Villa to lose in the cup. So we're clutching here a bit, let's say. But I wouldn't be moving Jared Bowen. I certainly wouldn't be moving him from -4, personally. FPL MOTD says Bruno or Morgan Gibbs White / Elanga from -4. We'll need to captain them but not planning on wildcard until 34. Who's better over this and the following games? Thanks. Not sure I understand the question. Bruno or Morgan Gibbs White Elanga for a -4? I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it Bruno to get in over one of those two players? Wouldn't do it. Not for a -4. For free, and it's affordable. I understand it. -4, no. I'm not totally sure that I understand the question. I'm sorry. Daniel Clayton says, I've got a decent 9 players this week. Can't decide whether to -4 or -8 to replace Harwood Bellis and or Dango, or let it go and hope for a bit of luck. What are your thoughts, please? So, okay. Again, if you were to go Harwood Bellis to Vardio, the effective isn't over Harwood Bellis for all of those weeks, right? It's over Harwood Bellis now, and then it's over whoever you'd be selecting him for over the other weeks, right? So if you went, I'm going to go Haaland this week, cool, right? But then is he going to start for you every week moving forward? I would say Harwood Bellis for this week is not terrible. Almost certain to start. Jan Bednarek's out with concussion, so probably bring Bella Kochop in alongside him, or they move back to a back three. Either way, he's nearly a certain start at Harwood Bellis. So effective -4 for a defender, no. But if it's like for Vardio or Kirkes, and this makes your team better for a number of weeks on end, go for it. Similar to the Utara scenario. If you are upgrading to Kluivert, thumbs up, right? If you're upgrading to like Bruno Fernandes this week, thumbs up. If you're like, well, I want to get a Flores player because I think he might not start this week, but then I'm not really going to use that Flores player afterwards. If that's your scenario, don't bother. Don't bother. They probably are both 1-pointers, Daniel. But then to top off the 1-pointer, you need at least 6 from the other guy, right? Depends what you're doing. Also depends a bit on your strategy later on. Mark says, hi, James. -4 hit better for Watkins / Palmer to Haaland and Minza. Excuse me. I'll shake this cold one day. Or Utara Watkins to Bruno Evan Nilsson. So still keeping Utara either way. If you take the first option, what are you doing with Utara once you hit 30? That would be the only point. Like, if that's going to go anyway, deal with that. As said, Mark, I prefer the option to keep Palmer. Right, we've hit 3 o'clock. I'll take on 3 more quickly. Birth Media says, top differential for this game in each position. Burnt Leno. Differential defender this week. Agba, No, let's go with Nico Williams. Midfielder. I'm so tempted just to say Fulham players here. Midfielder, Alejandro Garnacho. Please no one do that. And up front, Jimenez. Or Strand Larson as I mentioned for someone else. Pete Haley says, best striker options for striker, not Wood or Haaland. Is Solanke a shout? Cheers, buddy. I'm not keen, Pete. As said, I think there is a possibility he doesn't start. He's more likely he does than he doesn't, but I can say now he's not going to be in my predicted Tottenham lineup. Unless something comes out from the team news that changes that. And I've not seen Ange's presser yet. But I think there's a good possibility he doesn't start on Sunday. So that would be a strong no from me. Chris Bruce says, you sound a lot better. I'm getting there, mate. Thank you. Says, thinking Trent to Vardio, moving forward with Salah, Isak and Sarr. That's Jose Sarr. -4 this week to get 11 this week. When do we know definitely about the doubles and blanks? Okay, I'll repeat for the end. So, the FA Cup quarterfinals are the weekend after the international break. Technically before game week 30, right? On the Sunday is 4th quarterfinal. You will know at that point which 4 matches, or it might be less, but maximum 4 matches, can't be played on the weekend of game week 33. The deadline for game week 30 is then on the Tuesday. I cannot promise you that fixtures will not either stay in game week 34 or will definitively be brought forward to game week 33 before the game week 30 deadline. I would be staggered beyond belief if you did not know before the game week 31 deadline. I could say with near 100% you will. And you might know before game week 30. Good luck. I hope that's the case for people who are going in game week 30. But it's a strong possibility that you won't. As ever, guys, thanks for joining in. If you've not had your question answered, please feel free to drop me a tag on Twitter or on Blue Sky. I'll happily answer your question later. If it's just thrown into my DMs, it will just get deleted. I will not even read it. Love you lots. Please smash a like, hit the sub button. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. For the benefit of those on the audio, a 5-star review goes a really long way. And cue music, please, man child.